Now, get ready for uncensored sports madness. It's Dave in the City on Locks of the Week Radio.
Coast to coast, internet sports talk, Locks of the Week.
Doc Rivers continues to, time and time again, not get it when it comes to getting... Oh! Let him play!
And it comes time, we know how Lincoln dies, a tough spot with a bullet.
And as I speak to you, they're showing a Mongo USA fan at the World Baseball Classic chanting USA.
Actually, this whole day was a lot.
Ooh.
First thing you've got to mention here is the additions of Syracuse and Pitts, which is like adding two turds to a lawn.
No one puts the WGCs and the Players' Championship anywhere on the same level as a major, Frank. So chill out with that.
I actually never knew what meme was, and I always thought it was just MA. And I wonder what it is like living out there on Saturn.
She was gorgeous, man. This girl was really good looking. And I'm like, holy, is that so-and-so? And I'm seeing him doing a body shot off her, and he's hammered. He turns around, he's like, I love this place.
Round apple with the Orioles lettering on it.
They should put the Orioles one in the river.
From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City, brought to you by Locks of the Week Radio. Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans, and a pleasure to have you here for the big Wednesday show on YouTube exclusive tonight. It's a major problem we're having with the people at Blog Talk Radio. Just a terrible job in a big spot. Absolutely worthless. So we will not use them tonight. I have no tolerance. There's not enough time to wait this out. We're just gonna get going. We're gonna roll it out, and here you go. Let's make this happen. So let's do it. So if you want to chat with us tonight at DitCal or here on YouTube, make it happen. Hopefully you'll have a good time tonight. Let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. So tonight on the show we have a very exciting program. We'll be joined by Jake Winderman. He's the son of longtime Heat beat writer Ira Winderman, and we'll get that thing rolling tonight. So I'm just communicating with Jake right now to get online through our alternate means, which is through Skype, and we'll just get that going right now. I think what we can do is we can actually we can actually use Skype to dial his telephone number directly, and then that's how we'll communicate tonight. So I'm going to ask him what his telephone number is. We'll just get that started. I'll go ahead and dial it from here then, and we'll go. I was wondering if there was a way you could dial a Skype account through a phone. I'm not really sure if that's a possibility, so we're just going to let it roll for right now. But the subject tonight, LeBron comes home, back to Cleveland. It's a pretty big deal, and I'm as shocked as anybody else. I didn't think it was going to happen, and this is a big story. It's great. I consider me corrected. I really gave him no shot to do it, and he's coming home. What can I tell you? It's a pretty big story. So now to join us in just a moment is Jake Winderman. I hope that you do get a chance to check this out tonight. We are online. We are not on Blog Talk Radio tonight. I've just lost complete tolerance for them. It just doesn't work. It's not working. It's not going to work. So I just figure we'll get it rolling. I don't know. We'll talk about LeBron. We'll talk about the Heat. We'll talk about a lot of things tonight. It's a big story, and we'll get into a lot of other things as well. So let's go ahead and start our show. Glad to have you with us again at DitCal if you want to chat with us. I would say blogtalkradio.com/DaveInTheCity, but I am foregoing that option tonight. Just get to us on Twitter, or you can comment right here on the YouTube page if you're watching the program on YouTube tonight. We certainly hope that you will enjoy that for us. Let's go ahead and call our guest now. Whoa, not that. Let's go ahead and call our first guest of the evening. So this is a very different way of doing things, but you do what you got to do to get the guest rolling. Just a second here. We're going to go ahead and interface with our guest. If I get a wrong number, that'd be pretty bad. But let's go ahead and start this up. Okay. So here we go. We will now get our friend Jake Winderman to join us here on the program. Let's see if we get him on here. All right.
Hey, is this Ditkow?
Yeah, this is Ditkow. Hi, Jake. Welcome to the program. How's it going tonight?
Well, thank you for having me. It's a beautiful day here up in sunny Gainesville, Florida.
I love it. I love it. Summer is here, and good to hear from you. You know, this is really excited to have you on. And I know that we I'm sure many are aware of the fact that you're Ira Winderman's son. But what I'm interested in is your association with Mongo Nation. We discovered that you are a big part of it too, as am I, and was many of the people who listen to this program. Tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. I mean, what runs behind the mind of Jake Winderman, and how'd you come to find our great Mongo Nation?
Well, like you said, my father Ira has been covering the Heat since their inception in '88, so he's always been, a good person to know as my father. But when he got in touch with Francesa, I really actually started listening to the show, and when he was doing his thing. So from that, of course, I'm on Twitter at Jake Winderman if you want to follow me. So I just from doing that, seeing the Audio Mongo Twitter handle, just getting involved with it. I mean, it's a fun thing, and Twitter always ends up being fun. So it's really how I got into it, I guess you could say. That's
pretty neat. I mean, I'm happy to report we had Audio Mongo on last week on our program, and so he said he might even call tonight. Unfortunately, that would be if we had the switchboard running, but I'll send him a kind word for you. That's really cool. Have you spoken to our friend Audio Mongo before, or at least on the Twitter? I'm sure he's communicating.
No, of course. We've gone back and forth on DM and everything, talking about shows, stuff like that. So yeah, he's a nice guy.
He's a totally nice guy. Very nice guy. Very nice dude. He's really had a great empire. What is your favorite thing about Francesa? I mean, in terms of all the Zonisms and the things that he does on the program. I mean, are you now a regular listener of the Mike Francesa show?
Yes, I am. I mean, I go back and forth because there's a lot of good Miami radio, but as sort of a bit of a New York kid, just from my dad growing up in Queens and everything, I get a little perspective, a little Yankees, all that stuff. So yeah, it's just, it's a solid show. It's just I enjoy listening to it, and I mean, just the whole Twitter thing that's gone off is pretty fun too.
Oh, for sure. It's really added life to the show. I really think that the Twitter aspect of it has made it an even bigger. It's almost revived the show in a way. I think it's really cool. So yeah, all I can say to that is happy to have you aboard and glad to be a part of it. This is a big week to be following a show like this one. I know Francesa's on vacation, but at the same time, he was around to break the story. I know your dad came on and had some very, very, very classy words as far as LeBron James and his time in Miami. I mean, it was really, really very, very genuine, I thought, too. And I think it was really cool that it ended on a good note. I mean, I don't think there's really much. I mean, I don't know. Imagine you are a Heat fan, too. How would you evaluate the LeBron era in perspective in Miami?
Listen, this was the absolute best 4 years of fanship. Even the championship in 2006 was great because it was sort of out of nowhere. Shaq came down here, but if you would have told me in a 4-year span, if LeBron could have came, I just wanted one championship at that point. I know he did, but not one, not two. But if you were to tell me at the very start that we could have had 2 championships in 4 years, heck yeah, I'd be excited. And my thought is that he had a good point in his essay that he sort of described Miami like going to college, He sort of had to come into a different profile, take down the ego a little, which he really did. He's one of the nicest guys to deal with at practice and all that stuff from what I've heard. So I'm extremely appreciative, and I know Cleveland is his home. You always want to go back home, and even where there was the championship stigma, he got that by winning it in Miami. So no one can ever say anymore, ringless LeBron, anything like that. But what he really wants is getting that championship back home and winning it for Cleveland, winning it for Akron, which he does so much charity work for during and in the off season. So I have no real problem with it because it's like anybody returning home. When you've already done your job and proven you can win championships, you want to finish where you started.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's I think it's a great challenge for him. I think he'd be up for the task. I think it'll be a fun time in Cleveland. and he has won over almost all the guys that turned on him when he left originally. I think he's erased the decision. I think a lot of people said that. That's been said a couple of times on ESPN, and I agree. I think all the scorn that was produced from that. You could even argue that that letter that Dan Gilbert wrote is just in the past now. I think they've made peace too. The Sports Illustrated report indicated as much. So, wow. I mean, it's like bygones are bygones. It's a pretty exciting time in the NBA. So, well, the Heat have some work to do, but they did retain Chris Bosh, and Dwyane Wade will be coming back. I know that it kind of sucks for him because he had to he tried to opt out of his contract to keep it together, and it didn't work out. And the problem with that though is that because it didn't work out, he might be getting cheated dollars. So as I'm sure you followed Dwyane Wade's entire career, I mean, how does it feel to be a guy of his caliber? Number one, I mean, you've had basically your role on the team reduced. It used to be like he used to be Mr. Miami Heat, and he goes from that to being a role player, and then now he's being paid less too. It's an interesting concept. Where is Dwyane Wade now in his career? What do you think?
It is, and he's still, when he's healthy, he's still one of the best shooting guards in the league. But Dwyane is to Miami, if you think about it, what Marino was. Although Wade did win the championships with the Heat like Marino couldn't, Marino was here in his prime, and eventually in the early 2000s, when he began to retire, Dwyane is just transitioning into that part of his career. So Dwyane's a guy that he's all Miami. He took the pay cuts. He tried to make everything work out by opting out. Unfortunately not. But the Heat are a very loyal organization, so he's still going to make his $16 million. It's a bit of a pay cut, but he's glad to stay here in Miami. It really is his home, like you've seen him said. He's originally from Chicago, but he's turned into a Miami guy. So he'll have a statue here. He will always be beloved here. And it's just he's coming to a point in his career where he's older. We saw in 2006, explosive player when he was winning with Shaq, but now your knee goes like we've seen with Derrick Rose of all people, and it becomes even a bit of a mental thing. Dwyane will sit out his 25 games or whatever during the season in preparation for the playoffs, which we saw with LeBron. Now the only thing is, we have to sit out less, play a little more on the knee just because LeBron isn't there. And I think he can handle it to a certain point, but he won't be the Dwyane Wade we know and remember as possibly the best shooting guard in the league at the time of his prime.
Right. I think that seemed pretty evident over the last 2 years. Jake Winderman's our guest, and Dave Medina. And we will be going tonight, for those of you listening and watching tonight, we'll be going until 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific, which is usually when we start. It's kind of funny. But we wanted to go do it a little earlier tonight. We can accommodate a lot of other things that way. And Jake is our guest. So, Jake, yes, this is, I was very quick to write him off initially when LeBron did leave, but I'm starting to rethink that. I think the fact that they got Bosh back, big deal. That's a big move. I don't know. Did you think that they paid too much for Bosh, or do you think it'll be worth it in the long haul?
This has been my whole thing about free agency, especially this year. It is not a buyer's market anymore. It is a player's market, and they control it. I mean, what other year or season is Ben Gordon getting 2 years, $9.5 million,
oh my gosh,
or $9 million? It's around there. Without even playing, it removed basically a complete year. So the thing is, the price is going to be driven up. I mean, you saw how much Jody Meeks and guys like that were getting overpaid. So with Bosh, you're still good at getting good value. And some of the numbers we've seen, when LeBron wasn't playing and Bosh was doing his thing, he was shooting 40% from beyond the arc, averaging around 23 points per game. So he still is a lead, unfortunately. When Wade was healthy and LeBron was doing his thing, he was the third guy on that team. But I really think he can step up. And you can't say he's not a max guy, because when you looked around, he was getting similar contract offers in the dollar amount. Teams like the Rockets, the Lakers pursued him, Phoenix, Denver. So obviously people know there's still something there. He can still be the superstar Chris Bosh, and now he'll get even more shots like we saw with the Raptors. So I think he could evolve even more than we've really ever seen him to be.
I think so. I mean, the fact is he's going to get more shots. I think it's safe to say he'll average about 20 points a game, assuming good health. Don't you think so?
Yeah, no, I think he'll completely be back in those numbers. It's just a funny thing of where you could turn to LeBron for all the scoring and everything and stuff like that. You have Deng, who's a guy who can score, but he plays defensive. Now Wade, you don't know how aggressive or how well he's going to be shooting. So a lot of times now the ball might be in Chris Bosh's hand. The end of the game, crunch time. But yeah, I definitely think he can still average around the 20 or higher points per game he has in the past, because he's still a great player. He's still one of the best players in the NBA. Now he's not under the shadow of LeBron anymore, so he can maybe do a little more of his own thing.
Yeah, I think this is actually a nice turn of events for Bosh. He didn't really get the respect he deserved, honestly, in those 4 years, and now I think he might get a little more recognition. He's still there in terms of being a shooter. Maybe he's less of an interior guy now, but it's a definite plus to have him still on the team. It's actually pretty nice. It's almost salvages the Heat to an extent. So my question to you then is, with the additions of Josh McRoberts, I think he's all right. And then also, if I'm remembering, Danny Granger was the other pickup. Keep forgetting who that other guy was.
Granger's there, and I think if Granger can be what he was in the past, where he's explosive, really a scorer for Indiana, I think they got to steal with him at that money. And like we talked about with it being a player's mark with McRoberts, I mean, he's still a good player. I mean, he's still going to give you points. He doesn't play really whatsoever like a big man. I guess you can say he plays a little smaller than his actual size, but it's funny when you look at it. Both McRoberts and Granger's, two guys they've signed, are guys that have gotten into it with LeBron in games in previous seasons.
Yep. That's going to be an interesting matchup when Cleveland meets Miami, and you know that's going to be nationally televised somewhere. Oh, that's going to be fun. That is going to be fun. Oh, boy. Jake Winderman's our guest tonight. I'm Dave Medina, and we are live on YouTube if you're watching us, at DitCal if you're looking for the link. And we're happy to have you all with us. If you have a comment for either me or Jake, you can tweet at Jake Winderman as well. You can see the address right there, at Jake Winderman, right there on Twitter. And I'm at DitCal if you want to reach me. So we have more to chat about tonight. NBA is going to be the principal topic of this evening. And let's just go around the rest of the. Well, let's go around some other free agency moves. Like, what surprised you? What interested you the most? We had Paul Pierce going to the Wizards. That's now a pretty good team. You've got Bradley Beal, John Wall, and they have Marcin Gortat. That's a team now with that veteran presence. That's a team that could make some really serious noise depending on how things go this season. The East is wide open. Are the Wizards now a player?
Mm-hmm. And I think the East, how god-awful it was last year, I think this year we have a whole opening. I don't think the Cavs are the clear favorites like they were, and I think the Wizards can really do something. It's why Gortat didn't want to leave Washington to come to Miami. I mean, him and Nene in the front court is unbelievable. And I think in 1 or 2 years, you might have the best backcourt in the NBA with John Wall. And, of course, I'm a big Gator fan, so I love Bradley Beal.
Yep.
And I'm not going to overstate what he is, but he's still a really good, young, developing player. So I think Washington's another name you have to throw in there. I think there's really maybe a big four of Miami, Cleveland, Washington, so some teams like that, Chicago. I think those are like four of the teams that you're really going to see getting into it. And I don't think any of them is clearly better than the next team. I mean, that's just my opinion.
No, I mean I think it's going to be pretty tight, as a matter of fact. And the Bulls too, looking like a credible offensive threat without Pau Gasol. This assumes that he plays at his his historical All-Star caliber level, and he stays healthy. These things are possible to happen, though. Not a lock, but that's a big move for the Bulls. I think the Bulls, if they get some good minutes out of Derrick Rose, that's another player in the East. Your thoughts about the Bulls offseason so far?
I think the Bulls are going to be a fantastic team, but as always, it revolves around Derrick Rose, and he's going to be healthy, he's going to be recovered, but a lot of it with the ACL and your knee it's sort of a mental thing. You're scared because Derrick Rose is one of the most explosive players in the NBA, and with one simple cut, you're just worried you don't want to tear anything up. So even if he's not there, I think Tom Thibodeau's a hell of a coach. I think where the X factor in the East this year might be home court, something like that. Thibodeau's not afraid to push his guys 82 games. He's not afraid to say to his guys, hey, they're not Tang anymore. Hey, Pau Gasol, you got to go out there for 75, 80 games because we want that home court. So I think Thibodeau, unlike where the Heat last year would give guys like Wade rest, even give LeBron some time off. I think Thibodeau wants every single game to matter. And while last year we saw a lot with the Heat where they'd really gear up for games, Indiana, New York, teams like that, I think Thibodeau thinks every single game is like that. Preseason games, everything. Come Thibodeau to me on a Tuesday night against the Hornets wants to go all in and play like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
That's funny because it makes me wonder, as you know, I think you alluded to this, is that gonna wear them out so much that they have nothing left for the playoffs? I mean, that's a dangerous way to play because then people could get hurt. I like it on principle, but the way that, for example, Greg Popovich does it is totally different. Like, he rests guys all the time. And look at them, they won the championship. So I wonder, like, which philosophy wins out. It seems like right now it's Pop's philosophy. Where do you stand in terms of, like, how do you like that? Like, do you like the way that Thibodeau has them go max effort every game? I mean, that's a lot of games.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, there's the two different styles of coaches. There's a player's coach who will give guys off. I mean, Pop's hilarious how he lists guys off. He'll put DNP hold for someone like Tim Duncan, so that's pretty funny to see there. But with Thibodeau, he's a great coach, and he knows what he's doing, and he's proven it because he showed that he can do well in the East. A lot of times you might lose guys like that sometimes. You just want to break and don't want to go at it 110% every game. So I think he does a great job, and I think he's never going to change his style because it's tough, but he's just a different coach than Pop. And back to the Spurs. Spurs are like completely different than anything we've ever seen. Everyone's willing to take a pay cut. Everyone's willing to play together. And it's just crazy to see a team for so many years since Duncan got there and Parker and all those guys just be able to do it and stay together, all taking pay cuts because they understand what's necessary, and they're all in with Pop, and Pop is all in with them.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I don't know they are that motivated to win, and it works. But it's remarkable how even the best players on that team they'll take a little bit less and play. And you know, I know we're saying, I know it's always silly to use that. Oh, you're taking a pay cut. They're still getting paid like millions of dollars, but it's still nonetheless compared to the rest of the market. It's amazing how much people are willing to give. Everybody there is so generous, and it's just a culture that has succeeded for so long. It's more than any other franchise. It's a team-oriented culture, and I've really grown to appreciate it. I mean, my respect for the Spurs is certainly great too. Your thoughts about the Spurs now, in this entire era, going all the way back to when they won their first title about 15 years ago. What do you think?
I mean, with David Robinson and all those guys, but I think the mantra of San Antonio basketball is you don't have the Showtime Lakers, you don't have South Beach. It's San Antonio. I mean, you have the Riverwalk, but that's fun for 30 minutes. So you have the San Antonio team, and they're all basketball. I mean, guys like Tim Duncan, you never hear of him doing anything off the court. I mean, Tony Parker had his relationship with Eva Longoria. It's Eva, right? Sorry, I'm terrible with these names.
Yeah, but, Eva Longoria, that's right.
Yeah, Eva Longoria. I almost confused her with Tampa Bay third baseman Evan Longoria. Always confused those names for some reason, so similar. But I know. But I think with the Spurs, you never hear anything out of Manu Ginobili. None of those guys. And the Spurs have always been a team. You can go 10 deep. You can go 12 deep. Pop is a great motivator, and for as simple as he sounds when he does the one-word interviews and everything like that, they've been able to bring the team together, and they've been winning since the early 2000s, where we've seen so many different NBA dynasties crumble and crush and things like that. So it's unique. I don't think any of us will understand it unless we were inside of that organization. It's just so different than anything we've ever seen.
It is, and I think it's something to cherish. What's really stood out to me is that they don't have any major lean years, and a lean year to them is like they make the playoffs, but they only go around. But they haven't had any abysmal seasons at all. It's a train that just doesn't stop. That's what really surprises me the most, that they don't have that 1 or 2 years in the middle that are just so terrible, but at the same time, helpful for a rebuilding process. They don't need to. Their scouting is so good. And because they're able to recruit guys from all over the world, literally all over the world, to come and play for this team. And if it seems so easy to do, how come the other teams in the NBA can't do that? The scouting is phenomenal, isn't it?
It's phenomenal, and I really think what we've seen is they've never really had an outspoken guy who's a role player or a supporting player like that, and they all really just have that same, let's be quiet, nothing off the court, we're going to stick to basketball, and that's the only thing. So many other teams and stories you see things coming out of them, but the Spurs have just always been able to keep it quiet, and I don't know if it's great PR, if they're able to shut all of that up, but I mean, guys come there, they become good role players, and none of them are ever outfit for their situation. I think it was Steven Jackson who actually went there a couple of years ago, if that's the name I'm remembering right. And I remember he was basically kicked off the team because he just didn't fit with what the Spurs wanted to do. I mean, he wanted to be the shooter. He wanted to be out there. He wanted to have the ego of a guy like LeBron, but he was just Steven Jackson, and so they shut that up pretty quickly, and they just stuck to their core group because it seems like Ginobili never ages, except the last year in the finals he had a little bit of an off appearance, but he was great this year. Duncan never ages. Parker never ages. They've just been so good together that you never know when it's going to end because you keep thinking it's over the next year. Tim Duncan's going to retire. No, he's got a new contract, and the band's getting back together.
It's impressive. I just love it. The closest thing I think you can find to that in sports is the New England Patriots, where basically their philosophy owns everything, and no single guy is going to be bigger than the team. That's hard to keep up, and so I've got to give the Spurs a lot of props. And they have that now with that championship. Let's see, I think they've got 5, which is pretty good. So anyway, Jake Winderman is our guest here on the program tonight. I'm Dave Medina. We'll be going together until about 6:30 on the West, 9:30 on the East, and we'll switch over to random questions with Kevin on the Cape. So while we have you here, we're getting some shout-outs from the rest of Mongo Nation tuning in tonight. Glad to have you all with us. We have a thing that I think the Mongo Nation is trying to compose a list of favorite Zonisms. So it's like when you compose, you try to write out the way that Mike Francesa says something. For example, Joe Girardi. This is indicated. Joe Girardi he says it with his thick accent, like Georgia Roddy. So it's Georgia Roddy, like that. Do you partake in these Zonisms? Any favorites of yours?
I mean, it's just a New York accent. And if you really hung around my dad, he has that strong accent. He says ranges when he's watching the team, everything like that. So it's just an up north thing. And I just have the Florida accent just because I've been down here for so long. But it's just an accent, and it's different. That's what's funny about it. It's different.
Oh, I agree. It's fun. I mean, we don't mean any total disrespect. It's just totally a.
Oh no! Don't worry.
Yeah. Now, question as far as another Mongo's on meme, which is the City's on. So when a team gets eliminated from the playoffs or the World Cup or whatever, we do like a Mike Francesa style comments, and it's for that city. I know that I recall that you had in on this. I've had it on this too. What's been your favorite cities on so far? Because there's been all sorts of them. They've had like Argentina's on, Miami's on, Chicago's on. It's just all over. It's everything. Nobody gets missed when we do these. But do you have a favorite? Like any particularly that stand out?
I mean, of course it's going to be Miami just because I'm down here and all the local stuff is just so funny that when you hear it, it's like, oh, that is true. So I think it's more funny when it's with your city. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can dig that. I know that as a Dodger fan, there was an LA's on. There's an LA's on for something else too. I kind of get into that. I was a little. I remember at the time I wasn't all into it, but it was actually really inspired at the time, just because like my team got eliminated from the playoffs. But it was. But at the end of the day, it was really, really good. Like it was really good, and the second time it happened, I was laughing pretty hard at it. It's definitely cooler when you've got like your local references, and so that's an interesting perspective on it. I like that. Very well, Jake Winderman, our guest. So so what else can we speak about as far as the NBA? Well, it's been definitely a big off season. And we didn't really touch on the Western Conference too much. I mean, many of the big transactions are going eastward, but I do think that the West is going to be a pretty tough conference this year. Is it too early to make a prediction? Who do you think is going to be pretty hot based on what we know so far? How would you see it? Do you think? I mean, how would you predict it?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think you have a lot of different good pieces moving around. I mean, in Golden State, you still have the Splash Brothers, new coach Steve Kerr, albeit he is a first-year coach. But I think adding a guy, Sean Livingston, finally back from his knee injury we saw last year. With the Nets, he was pretty effective. I mean, hopefully if Phoenix can re-sign Eric Bledsoe, they're still going to have a good team out there. I know the Heat have made some pursuits at him, but it's really all jumbled up out there. I mean, you're still going to have your terrible teams. You're still going to have Utah, who's never going to be good when you're paying a guy like Gordon Hayward 4 years, $64 million. So I think, of course, Oklahoma's still going to be good, and Oklahoma City with Durant and Westbrook and everything. But they made the push at Pau Gasol. Weren't able to get him, but I think it's still San Antonio. They're still the same team. They're bringing back Boris Diaw, who was unbelievable against the Heat. And you still have Duncan, you still have Parker, you still have Ginobili. And then I say you got to look at Dallas only because the thing is they're bringing in a guy like Chandler Parsons. It's just, is Nowitzki still going to be able to do what he does? And is losing Vince Carter, even at this age, still going to be a big deal for them?
That's an interesting question. Carter was a huge get for them last year, and he really had a fountain of youth effect on him. He really played great. I mean, he had that big shot to win one of the games against San Antonio during that series. And that's a very good question. I think, but I will say this: Chandler Parsons is legit all-star. That guy's really good. So I'm not sure if it'll completely fill in the blank, but he is definitely going to get some good production there in Dallas. I think the offense suits him well too because he can really take some good shots and they pass the ball around. It'll be a good fit, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is with Vince Carter is even late in his career, he's still putting up what he needs to do. He's still putting up 13 points per game, 11 points per game. I mean, last year and the year before, he's still shooting 40% from beyond the arc. So even though he's not going to be like the guy he was in Toronto, he's not going to be averaging 25 points a game, he still contributes. And back to Chandler Parsons, it's crazy. We never thought, I mean, I'm a huge Gator fan, but we thought we have a long list of players, guys like Nick Kalathis, Chandler Parsons, even Eric Murphy, guys we thought were great in college, but we never knew that if they were going to excel in the NBA. But with Chandler Parsons being a second-round pick, I mean, played in France a year, comes over to the Houston Rockets, and he was just awesome. He's a guy that I think most definitely is going to be an all-star next year. He's putting up great numbers. Last year was 19 points per game, about 7 rebounds per game. And that's only in his second, and that's really only in his third NBA season. So you got to think, how much better is this guy going to get? If he's just 3 years in, he's already putting up these impressive numbers with a new landscape, a guy like Dirk, to deter some of the attention away from him. I think Parsons can be even better over there.
Yeah. Because remember, I mean, my look at it was that Harden was really, I think you just said this, but Harden was definitely hogging all the shots. I mean, he loves to shoot the ball. And I think with more touches, and he's guaranteed that because he won't have Harden around to take most of them, he could get some pretty serious numbers. I mean, we might be talking like 25 points a game, maybe 22 points a game. It'll be good. It'll be fun. One other thing I wanted to bring up. Golden State getting Steve Kerr is an interesting call. Kerr has exactly 0 head coaching experience. How is that going to play out? I mean, he sounds great on TV, but is that going to be good enough to translate into coaching? What do you think?
I think Mark Jackson still did a good job with Golden State. I mean, he appealed to the players. He was a players coach. Didn't get along too well with him, but Kerr's a great basketball mind. And I mean, whenever you get a guy like a guard, a point guard more specifically, point guards are always controlling the floor. They know the game. I think Kerr's a smart enough guy schematically that he'll be able to put it together. But I mean, so much of coaching, while there is schemes, and Greg Popovich, no one's better than just being able to draw it up, make a halftime adjustment. I think on a team like Golden State, when you can really get Steph Curry behind you, when you can really get Klay Thompson, the Splash Brothers, now you have another great guard in Sean Livingston. Yeah, I think he'll be fine out west. And the West is always going to be difficult, but I see them finishing around basically what they did last year.
I think it really, at the end of the day, it boils down to the talent. I'm just hoping that the players at Golden State weren't so loyal to Mark Jackson that they don't give him a chance. And I feel like that will happen. But nonetheless, it makes you think because they really did seem like the kind of group that could run through a wall for their former coach. But at the same time, strategically, I think Mark Jackson had misgivings. Like, he was not a great strategist, according to many. So that's the one thing that you look out for. All right, great spot there. Let's think. Portland, very young team. It's an interesting thought. Marcus Aldridge really came of age, and we certainly know what happened with Damian Lillard. That guy, I mean, it's been brewing for a while. I think it was like his second season there. He's fantastic. Can they build upon that great playoff run? It was their first in a long time. Where do you see the Blazers in the next upcoming season?
I think the Blazers are a fun young team that can get better. And I mean, they were young with the loss of the Rockets and everything, but they have a fun roster. They have LaMarcus Aldridge, who I think is like Chris Bosh, maybe a little better. Lillard's going to develop into something great. I mean, people didn't really see him coming out of college. He was a great scorer, but they didn't know if he'd be the guy. Nick Batum, I mean, you got a lot of good names over there, and I think they can really be a good team. I'm just not sure if right now in this West it's their time to shine. It might be in a couple of years, and I think they're good enough that they can still keep up with what they've got, re-sign their young guys. They've been able to keep Aldridge in Portland, so I think they're going to be a very good team this year, playoff team in the very tough West. I just don't know if they have what it takes to make the push over a team like San Antonio, over now a team like Dallas, teams like that.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. I certainly feel that way as well. Somebody was referencing one of my listeners referenced an incident from Mark Jackson. Oh yeah, Mark Jackson was having some major problems with the uppers and the upper management. So that was ultimately what led to his demise from the team. I mean, is that that always plays into it. I mean, we've seen a similar thing in the Bay Area with Jim Harbaugh. How much of his dismissal was that, and how much of it was just his overall basketball skill, or his basketball coaching skill? I should be more specific.
I mean, he was a good coach, and he got behind his guys, and he took a Golden State team. He had a winning percentage over 500. He did a really good job with the team. It's just in the end, the owner, the GM, they have the final say. And as good as a coach as you can be, I mean, even we saw it with like Lionel Hollins out in Memphis when they hired Hollander and basically went completely sabermetrics on everyone. It's you can do as good as the job as you want, and you can be as great as a coach. But if you're not getting along well with upper management, we see this with any job, whether it's you're a chef, an accountant, a banker, a lawyer, anything like that. If you're not getting along with your boss, you might not be there that long.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. So now let's just go one other. I forgot to mention in the East quickly on Carmelo Anthony choosing to stay with the Knicks. It seems like a logical decision. I mean, first of all, from the Knicks' point of view, it seems like the Knicks are a good team, or a good fit for him. I should be more specific there. And honestly, Melo would be the best available player anyway on the open market, other than LeBron. So, and maybe Bosh, but Bosh was taken too. So, do you feel like the Knicks? Are
you saying specifically this year, or?
Well, yeah, this it's the best available free agent this year. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. Do you feel like the Knicks made the right call staying with Carmelo Anthony?
I think the Knicks didn't have another choice. And even with bringing in Derek Fisher, letting him coach around a guy that's a superstar like Melo, listen, for as much as people talked about Melo going to teams like Chicago, Houston, Dallas, even Miami to be a contender, Melo likes his money. And he really wanted to stay with New York because in New York, he can be the guy, he can get his max track, and he can shoot as much as he damn well pleases. So he is a big New York fan because he can do everything there. He can be the guy, and honestly, seeing this offseason, winning doesn't really seem to be Melo's concern. So the Knicks, I think, can still be a team, finish in the bottom of the Eastern Conference. I just don't see them going anywhere, unfortunately. I don't think he cares about being a contender.
No, I mean, I don't think that was expectation in the first place. So I figure it's, there's really nothing. At least it makes the team interesting. I think if nothing else, I had the same argument in my head about the Lakers. If they had gone and somehow landed him, I said, well, okay, the Lakers are not going to be a finals contender with just that move, but they would have been an interesting watch, and maybe Pau would have come back too. So it's the same idea. Why not? I mean, you could build it around that, at least become a watchable team. I think with a couple other parts it could happen. So, I mean, what would the ceiling be for the Knicks? I don't know. I mean, I would guess they're a playoff team, and nothing more.
The playoff team, but nothing more. They're not a good enough team. They're not deep enough to really make a push. And I think that if you mentioned something about Los Angeles, I just want to make a quick point with them there. With Gasol leaving and Melo not signing there, all of that, I think the Lakers have to figure out something with Kobe, and I know he wants his money and everything, and I know he's not going to get rid of that contract. So unfortunately, taking up so much cap room, I mean, just asking you, what do you think the Lakers' appeal, honestly, at this point is? We have an aging Kobe, and you get to live in LA. I mean, that's really about it. The Lakers don't really have anything to offer anymore. I mean, I guess you can say Swaggy P, but are you really going to build a team around an aging Kobe Bryant and a young, Nick Young?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's not an enviable position to be in, and I don't really know what else you could really have done in that spot. I think there's two things that are always in play when it comes to being a Lakers owner or Lakers GM, and it's making the team competitive, but it's also making the team marketable. The problem is if they had gone full out and tried to completely clear the cap space, and this is what I wanted them to do. But it wasn't a realistic option because I feel like there would have been too much pressure from the media and the fans for that to happen. So they did the right thing. They took advantage of a bad situation and went for a great draft pick. They got Julius Randle. That's a great pick. But the Kobe contract, it always goes back to that Kobe contract. I mean, I just think that they jumped the gun a little bit too much offering that money. And I was okay with it. I didn't think it was the end of the world, but it nevertheless remains he's being paid a lot of money, maybe too much, and it's simply wow. Yeah.
And the problem with that is you can only have so many guys around the big superstar to take a pay cut, and at a certain point, you just have to say to Kobe, listen, if you want this team to function, you have to do something. You have to take a pay cut. And now, look, they have a good young Julius Randle, and Nick Young's a good enough player, I guess, but now you have a terrible Jeremy Lin contract coming over, which the Rockets were trying to clear cap space and everything. But, I mean, could there be a worse contract out there? I know you guys had Lin Sanity in New York, but he is just not the player we thought he is. I mean, it's awful. The Lakers have no money to spend because they keep bringing on these terrible contracts.
You're making some fair points here, Jake. I will say that Lin is a good asset. It helps the backcourt. It's just really about the money, as you said. It's about the money. It was just too much. It was not a frugal contract. I will agree to that. And but I guess it's just a point of desperation. It makes me wonder, though, doesn't it? With Dr. Buzz having passed and with Jim and Jeannie taking over, you wonder how many of these transactions, and I don't blame Mitch Kupchak too much for these, because I feel like a lot of these kind of signings, Dwight Howard and Steve Nash, these are Jim moves to me. These are moves that the owner wanted because he wanted to get the copy. He wanted the publicity. And I think Jeremy Lin's a similar idea in that case. But he is pretty good. He's not as good. You're right. He's not that good. So it wasn't worth the money. But maybe there's a sense of desperation because they want marketable players too. It's silly, right? It doesn't make sense. I don't like it. But that might be part of what's going on with the Lakers. Other than that, I can't say. I just can't say. I mean,
they try. I understand. They tried to make moves. They tried to bring Phil out there to be the coach again, but he's in New York and he's just going to visit when he's going over for Jeannie. But they just couldn't do it out there. They tried everything, but again, it comes back to bad contract. It comes back to Kobe. If Kobe wants the Lakers to ever win again, which I mean he's at the very end of his career, so for him maybe it's just about the money at this point and staying in LA because he knows they are going to give him the money without the supporting cast. So they tried. They couldn't. There were so many other approaches and so many better places that people thought they could fit in than the Lakers. So the Lakers might be bad for a while, but listen, their fans had great years when they had Shaq and Kobe, even teams with Gasol and all of that with the Celtics in the mid-2000s playing them in the finals. The Lakers have to take some time off, and everything's like a giant, continuous bell curve in the NBA. You get really good, then you got to get really bad again if you want a good young team and you want to get those lottery picks and everything. You saw with LeBron.
Yep.
When LeBron left, Cleveland was bad enough. They were able to get those 3 basically number 1 picks, and they were able to rebuild. The problem is in L.A., are their fans going to give them time to rebuild? Because L.A. has always been good. So their fans have to take a step back and realize, yeah, we might be terrible at the bottom of the Western Conference for 3 or 4 years, but is it worth being better for the next 10 to 15 with young guys? And unfortunately in LA, they know winning now, or they jump and shift to the Clippers. Probably not, because
no, I don't think
completely two different fan ships. But and they're definitely not going to do that. But it's going to be hard for LA fans. They haven't experienced losing in an extremely long time.
No, I mean we saw a taste of it last year. And as you said, this kind of plan, or this kind of period of extended losing, so to speak, to build better drafts and so on, is actually what I'm hoping will happen. Otherwise, you're the Knicks of the last 15 years. You're stuck in neutral, right around 500 all the time. You don't want to do that. So I totally agree with what you're saying in that regard. I really think that they need to do something serious. Yeah, it really does go back to the Kobe contract, I must say. But maybe that's a blessing in disguise from the same reason. Maybe because it's now Kobe's swan song tour, it will give them the opportunity to have a built-in excuse. Well, Kobe got hurt, da-da-da. And then maybe they just end up having a few additional letbacks. I have no idea. But we will see what time brings.
Indeed we will, and the Lakers will have to go through their bad seasons, but now, hey, maybe you see a transition. You see good young teams like Washington, another young team like Cleveland being the new faces of the NBA, and while they're not the be-all, end-all number 1 market like a New York or LA is, it's good to see smaller market teams still getting some popularity, because it spreads the game to a lot of places. When a team like Memphis or teams like that are bad, they're in such a small market that there's not enough people to get behind them, unlike the Lakers, who have built such a legacy, that it's almost a good thing that the game is spreading to different places, because it's going to make the NBA more popular. That's a good way to think about it.
It is a good way to think. You know, there's other sports. There are other sports where big markets tend to be the ones that dominate. The NBA, at least at this point in time, is not really that. I mean, it's teams. Certainly, you get a lot of the same players involved, and sometimes the same teams show up time after time in the playoffs, but they're not from the biggest markets. San Antonio, we mentioned that. We have Oklahoma City, that was mentioned, and Cleveland. I mean, I think this is a good time to be an NBA fan, because it's now I feel like it's kind of wide open, and that's good. You know, because we've been having like the same 3 or 4 teams winning titles the last 25 years. Maybe it's time for a change. I don't mind that at all. All right, so Jake, one last question for you. This is not related to anything, but first of all, do you fashion yourself as a steak eater? Are you a steak fan?
Yes, very big. I mean, on the birthday, I mean, what's better?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. Actually, let me ask you this first. So in the Miami area or in Florida, what has been your favorite place to have a good steak?
I mean, there's been so many different places, but of course, if you know Miami, you know it is a marquee place. There's really, down here, Prime 112 is the place to be.
Ooh, nice. Prime 112. What's their signature cut there?
You know, I really enjoy taking it down, so I'll go for a porterhouse, but if I'm a little less hungry, it's a nice select.
I like that. So now, porterhouse is king. I'm a big fan of porterhouse as well. That's a good call. But what if you had to choose between a bone-in ribeye and a porterhouse, would you still go porterhouse in that spot?
Yeah, I still would.
All right, nice. And porterhouse is also like the best of both worlds. You get the strip, you also get the fillet. That's great. That's pretty. Now, how do you? This is the silly question. Most people do medium rare. Do you go medium rare too? Are you more on the rare side or more on the medium side?
Yeah, I'm a big rare fan. I mean, if the cow was still mooing, that'd be kind of the way that I would go. But yeah, I mean, you get a steak roll, and there's no juice left in it. It's horrible.
I love it. That's great, Jake. That's you got style there. That's good. That is good. I can dig it. That's pretty good. Any favorite sides? Do do you have an emphasis on any particular sides for steak?
No, you just go normal steak and potatoes, but it's really about the main dish. It's really, you have your LeBron and the filet. It's like, do you really care about the James Jones at the end of the bench and your potatoes?
That's an excellent analogy to it. It really is. Really cool. Well, I love it, man. Well, with that great comment and the other things in play, yeah, you really brought up some great points with the Lakers. I'm glad you brought that up. This is a definite fork in the road for them. We'll consider that along the way as the next few seasons arrive. But Jake, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. Any last words? Anything else you wanted to say to our audience?
Just want to say thank you again for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's a great show, so keep listening, guys. I know I'm just going to go experience the Gainesville nightlife. So you have a good show, and I'm sure I'll listen to the rest of the recording tomorrow.
Oh, the feeling's mutual, Jake. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hope we can do it again sometime.
All right. Have a good day, Dave.
All right, thanks. Thanks, you too. All right, Jake Winderman on the program. Oh, that was a fantastic interview. I was honestly just probably one of the better interviews we've had all year. And as everyone has been saying to me on Twitter, he sounds just like Ira, doesn't he? That was pretty uncanny resemblance. I have to agree with you all there on that one. So with that in the books, let's now open the book on America's favorite moment in sports talk podcasting.
Do the dance. It's time for random questions. Good stuff. In the city with Kevin on the cake.
And away we go. We're going to do this a different way tonight. Instead of Kevin just jumping on, I will actually go and talk, and I will actually contact him through Skype. So this is going to be interesting. All right, I'm going to call Kevin on the phone. So I will start up the telephone now, and we will begin the phone call. This is pretty fascinating because I don't know if this is going to go through or not. But if you have a random question for us, write the word question followed by the question itself, and send it to @ditcow for random questions, and we'll go ahead and answer them in order for the next half hour. Half hour only tonight because I have some other obligations coming up. 8 local. I will be at a concert. That'll be a fun time. Let's see if I get through here to the junk man. All right, we'll start it up. So the phone call is dialing. Let's see if he picks up. All right. So we will wait this out. See if we get our friend.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
Kevin.
Is not available.
Okay, Kev.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
We got the right number. All right, maybe we'll leave a message. Kevin, it's Dave. I'm trying to call you. Get back to me. I will get back to you in just a minute. Okay, thanks. Bye. Oh, that was funny. I will try that number again. Let's go ahead and do it and see if he picks up this time. It's kind of weird he didn't pick it up. That was weird. I just texted him like 2 seconds ago. I didn't know if you saw that, but we'll get that rolling. Text random cues to @ditcow, and we'll keep going tonight. Is this calling? It's not calling. Okay, we'll call it again. There we go. Woo! Hope you're doing all right out there. @ditcow again. YouTube comments as well if you want to leave a line with us or ask a random question. We'll be there at both channels tonight. We are not on blogtalkradio.com tonight because the system simply failed. And okay, that's weird. Let's call that again. Let's see if I get him on the phone. No, it wasn't it. All right, we'll try it one more time. All right. I know it worked because we had his voicemail just a few moments ago. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's see if we can get that rolling. All right.
Good evening.
Good evening, Kevin. Welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Good evening, sports fan.
Good evening indeed. I'm glad that you made it. So the reason I'm using this method to call you tonight is because Blog Talk Radio died on us. It wouldn't connect to the host line. Could you believe that?
This is the first time he's ever called me. This is a big step in our relationship.
It's the first. Oh man, yeah, these are different times indeed, right, Kev? I mean, first of all, how are you doing? How's it going? What's new with you?
Not much, Dave. Rainy day, craptastic weather out here all day long. But you know, same old, same old. How are you?
I'm doing swell. I mean, it's weather's considerably better. I've heard about all the rain going on out east. Crazy. We did have one day it was really humid. Monday. It's just bizarre, like humidity that I'm not used to in the West Coast. But other than that, it's been sublime. It's been a kind of a hot and cold week in terms of workflow. But otherwise, it's been good. It's nice. I'm gonna go to a concert tonight after our program. That's the beauty of the West Coast. We can do a show and I can still go to a concert after. So, good stuff.
Weird Al?
No, not Weird Al. His album's out this week. Yeah, I listened to it yesterday. That was great. No, it's gonna.
I can expect you were pretty pumped. That's the first thing I thought of. Weird Al.
That's a good guess too. But his concert will be later. He'll be doing a tour a little bit later. So, but no, it will be Boz Scaggs. Have you heard of him? I think you have.
That name sounds familiar. I won't pretend to know the music, but that name definitely sounds familiar.
Yeah, you know, Low Down, Lido Shuffle, and We're All Alone, like some classic songs that you've heard over the years, and so it'll be fun to listen to that tonight. Nice jazz concert.
We're All Alone. That sounds like an uplifting show.
It's not. Well, I mean, that's just one of the songs. Like most of the stuff's upbeat. Like, you know, you've heard the Lido Shuffle song. I'm sure you like when you hear it, you'll know what it is, right? Like it's that kind of guy. So it's totally like that. Yeah, he was big time in the mid '70s, and he's continuing today. He had an album just released last year, and I took a listen to it. Not bad. It's some bluesy, some R&B covers. Pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. Some other guys will collaborate with him on this concert tonight. Should be a good show. So I look forward to it. Some guys I like.
Anytime you can get some other guys to collaborate.
Yeah, you can't. It's never complete without that other guy. Some other guys, right?
There's always that other guy that you don't know about, and then all of a sudden, holy crap!
Absolutely.
What is that other guy? Whoa.
Oh, which guy? That guy. The other guy. Oh, love it. Summertime. Oh, we were talking about all the fresh harvests that we were having. I ate 3 peaches in a row before the show started today in anticipation of a big night. And also because I haven't had dinner yet. I haven't had dinner all this time. But I had 3 peaches in a row. That's a lot. But it was really good. They've been really good. What have been some of your favorite fruits, your favorite fruit to eat so far this summertime?
Oh, I don't bother with seasons and fruit and that stuff. I eat if there's something I want to eat, I eat it. I don't care if it's. You could tell me something's in season, how could you eat it then? But if I'm hungry, I have a craving. My favorite fruit, though, on the planet isn't even close. I have a #1 favorite, and that is the mango.
Ooh, mango. Ooh.
I have a random question. I have a random question for you. Now that I thought about it, have you ever done I know some people make their certain fruits and let them sit in alcohol, for a day, and then have a martini or something. Have you ever done that with peaches? Put them in vodka overnight or something and had a peach martini?
It's just I've never
infused martini.
That's a great question. I've never really thought about it before, so no, I haven't. I haven't tried anything because it never really came to mind.
Yeah, I've never heard it with peaches, but I have had friends who, when they're having a barbecue or something, a few days before they'll take, a bottle of vodka and, cut up pineapple or something, and then, or maybe watermelon, and then do shots of that or have drinks of that.
Yeah, and I guess that, for obvious reasons, that enhances the flavor of the alcohol, yeah?
You should probably save it for when me and Tommy and Andy come visit.
It's a good thinking.
Yeah, store some peaches in a giant, like Poland Spring, like office bottle of water. Just load that thing up with vodka, and then we'll just hit the little button.
That's gonna be a hell of a podcast when we do that. That's...
And then, exactly. And then do a show after.
Yeah, do a show. We have to do a show. It'll be just the most insane program that we've done in quite some time. Once that happens, so pretty exciting, Junkman. I like it. Oh man, but this is my favorite time of the year. I mentioned it already. It's a pretty good time. So we have only a few. We won't have as long a show as we usually do. So let's just get right to it then. Random questions at Ditcow. If you want to tweet those questions to us at DITCOW. In fact, I'll capitalize it here in the graphics so that it's obvious. And away we go. I just go right to my Twitter account and we will look up the first question. Here it is. Okay, top 5 pizza toppings. I think we've done this before, but I'll just quickly give you mine as you think up yours, Junkman. Pepperoni. I mean, it begins with pepperoni. It always does with pizza. Sausage, huge, especially if it's good sausage, really good sausage, fennel sausage, really good. And then after that, it gets interesting. Mushrooms, that's a nice compliment. I like olives, another nice compliment. And either Canadian or regular bacon. And I kind of interchange the two. So those make a great pizza. Any of these 5 toppings. Pepperoni, sausage, mushrooms, and then, what did I say? Pepperoni, sausage, mushrooms. And then bacon, and then the 5th one was what? I just forgot what the 5th one was. Olives, I think, was the other one? Okay. So those are my top 5. Do you have what would your top 5 pizza toppings be, Kevin?
I don't have a top 5. I'll just say that for pizza, you can just put any sort of meat you can find on it. I don't want any sort of vegetables on my pizza. If I wanted vegetables, I'd eat a salad.
Yeah, you mentioned that once before.
Meat, sausage, pepperoni, bacon, ham, and I don't know, chicken. Any meat. I don't want any vegetables.
Chicken.
The tomato sauce
Interesting.
is plenty of vegetables for me.
Yeah, chicken's good though. I mean, barbecue chicken is really good. That's a good one. Okay. Next question. Random questions tonight at Ditcow. If you want to ask your random question, both of these first 2 questions come from our friend Jared back in Stamford, Connecticut, and he asks, "Are you in favor of the DH in the NL, or do you want to just keep everything the way it is? So do you want to add a DH to the NL, or just keep the leagues as they are?"
That's a terrific question. It's actually something I had a conversation with a friend of mine a little while ago, like a real cool baseball talk, and I've always been on the side of no. I grew up as a fan of the National League and stuff, but just recently, I'd say, last few months, I've been thinking about it, and like I said, we're chatting about it, and I think, you always say, you have to wait for an idea whose time has come, and I think it's about time that the National League does the DH now. I think the time has come for it. Offense is down, league-wide. You can tell whether you want to say it's the steroids or whatever, or lack of steroids, I should say. I think it's time. I think it's time for the owners to say, let's go with the DH in the National League. You get 12 to 15 high-paying jobs for the players, and then maybe the sort of a negotiating tactic, and the players give something back, whether it's
I guess. Yeah,
or something. I think the time has come. I think it's pretty. I think they need a little. I think they need a little shot in the arm. A little more offense. Something. I don't know. I've just very recently come around to the National League DH idea.
I like. That's. Well, I can understand it. I mean, it would make everything consistent. And I understand that totally. I mean, we're kind of at a point where the National League is the American League anyway. They play each other so often now. I can understand that. I personally would just keep it the way it is. what I really want to do is just take the DH out, but I know that's not going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen, and so to even ask for it is kind of silly. So I probably wouldn't even bother with it. So
you just want to start telephone bat more.
Hey, look, some of the pitchers can bat well. Some pitchers can do a decent job for themselves, but
right. But when you say that, that's what 210, 205. It's still pretty pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. I know that. I mean, I'm not silly enough to think that it is anything other than just, a lesser hitter at the end of the lineup. So, yeah, I mean, I think if they added the DH, I would be like, all right, well, fair enough. I mean, at least it's consistent now, so then everything's sort of on the same level, and so it wouldn't be as much of a, it wouldn't be so bad. But I think a small part of me will die if that really does happen in the NL, because the NL is defined by strategy, and you reduce a lot of the strategy by just taking that away. And you always notice that better managing usually happens in the NL, at least from but maybe I'm biased. I mean, I'm an NL guy, so there's a little bit of that. Okay, that's a good response. So I think if it happened again, I can live with it. It wouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't have a huge show about it or anything. It's just like, okay, fine, whatever. Okay, next question. Are you in favor of legalized gambling, like across the board, not just in Vegas, but everywhere? Now, that's an interesting question. Which...
You mean sports betting, or?
Okay, that's a good question, too. I think they just mean, like, everything, like, sports, slot machines, cards, and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Especially nowadays, you don't have to go very far to find a casino. So, if your state doesn't have it, I'm sure the next one over to you does.
So, in other words, why go on with the charade, right? I mean, we may as well just make it legal across the board.
I think the question is, to me, is that specifically saying sports betting? Casinos in almost every state, whether it's the ones on the riverboat casinos or whether it's Foxwoods, and I mean, you don't have to go to Vegas anymore to go to a casino. You can get in your car and get there anywhere in a couple of hours.
It's okay.
But Vegas is the only place you can go into the sports book. And at least as far as I'm aware of, maybe another state or two has allowed it. But last time I looked, I think Vegas is the only sports betting state. Interesting.
Okay, let me get that clarification. It should be in just any moment now. Okay, I haven't really received it yet, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can bet on sports online, anywhere, really. It's not like, I remember when I was in college, I was betting sports online, and it was, some website in I think it was St. Thomas or somewhere in the Virgin Islands, and I had to send a check there, and they'd send checks back, and it was kind of shady. Now people have stuff, deposit directly in their bank account. Well, not much of a big deal anymore.
Okay. All right, we just received a clarification from our friend Jared. He says, yeah, sports betting in particular. So, like, instead of doing these shady websites, like, would you be in favor of them legalizing sports gambling in other states aside from Vegas? Because right now that's the only state that allows it.
Absolutely. I think it would be so simple to set up. You wouldn't even have to build anything. Just throw on a bunch of TVs on racetracks, which are in every state in the country, and allow sports betting through there. They've got everything already set up already.
Yeah, you're right. Racetracks would do the job. That's true. That's a very good. That's a really well put.
They've got the room. They've got the parking. Everything is so set up there. Even if it was just limited to that kind of a place, you're not allowed to build a sports betting house, but we're going to now every track in the country is you're going to be able to wager. That would be pretty cool. Plus, it's all taxed, and it's all. Unfortunately, maybe there is a downside, but I don't see the downside. I'm sure people talk about people get addicted, but that kind of happens in really anything. hope that, I don't know, people would just bet what they can afford to lose kind of situation. I know it doesn't happen. That's not a perfect world, but I don't see any problem with throwing in sports betting with thoroughbred or whatever, harness racing. Just throw it all together.
Yeah, this is good. I mean, and I know that you've had a lot of experience with casinos and setting lines and setting odds and all that. So that's really cool. I'm glad. I mean, it's a good and progressive way of thinking. I think it'd be great. I mean, I'm speaking from a selfish point of view. I think it'd be convenient for me. I'm like, that's great. I can just go to Santa Anita or somewhere and play some futures bets. That'd be fun. And then, like you said, not serious money. Although some people still do it, but it'd be nice to have a little fun with it. So yeah, I would say I would be in favor of it too. So very good.
Yeah,
so
think about you. You got the Giants and Dodgers are in there, and your friends, instead of going to the sports bar, you're like, hey, let's go to Santa Anita. We'll watch some horses, and then we'll watch a Giants-Dodger game, and we'll throw $20 on the over and under runs, hits, errors. It would just add to the whole kind of experience.
That's pretty solid. I think it's I think other people will take your lead and make that initiative. I think I think that'd be really fun. I think hopefully others will be receptive to that idea. I think there's a good chance of it. So it's good response, Chuck, man. That's a really cool. And again, I take your opinion very high. I feel like your opinion here is really valuable. So it's a good deal. Let me ask you another random question. This is my question though. If you know that you have a special promotion in town, we have a thing called Restaurant Week, where a lot of restaurants here in the city have these great prix fixe menus. I don't know how you pronounce that, but these fully stacked menus with 3 courses, and you have an appetizer, you have a main course, and you have dessert. It all comes through one inclusive price, like at $45, something like that. My question is, if nobody else wants to go to a restaurant with you on that particular week, would you still go to a restaurant yourself just to try out the menu?
No.
No. Okay.
And I also don't. The whole restaurant week, they do that in the towns up here, Dave, and it's a small psychotic hatred of mine that they do it up here, because they do it in July, and each town does this, and the restaurants do this, and I'm always wondering, I'm like, why are they doing this now? I'm like, everybody is already here. You don't need to attract anyone. The idea of a special or a discount thing on the Cape in July and August is mind-boggling to me, because the audience is already here. If you want to do it in October or in April, that makes sense. Get some people to come in from Boston or wherever. But when they do that here, I think it's just completely ridiculous, because you've got millions of people already here. They're going to spend their money. I don't understand that part of it. I understand Restaurant Week, you want to showcase things, but up here they do it at the most ridiculous times. I have my bosses all the time. They'll go, hey, let's do a special on 4th of July. I'm like, no, that's just extra work. There's millions of people already here. You're just killing me more. Let's do the special in November.
Interesting. So not a fan. And you're right. It is basically a gimmick to get more people to come to your restaurant during a slow period, or even when it's not a slow period. So I totally get that. Totally makes sense.
No coming to the Cape in July for Restaurant Week. They booked their houses and their hotels a year ago. They're already here.
Oh my, that's a wild thing. Can I ask a quick question regarding houses out in the Cape? How much would it cost to rent a typical beachside house on the Cape? Would you even know? That's an interesting question, right? Because that's how much would that be? Each month or each week?
You want to be on the beach?
Well, yeah.
You want to walk out of
you can walk out
of the sliding door. You want to walk on the deck, and you want to walk down the steps of the deck and be on sand on the beach.
Just about. Like, you'd have maybe a little bit of a hill before you get to the sand.
Well, I have one of my favorite girls in the world out here. Her family has a house on the beach near my market on the bay side, and they rent it out. So I have firsthand knowledge of how much that would cost you. And this house is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe five bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old house. I mean, it's probably 50 years old. It's, no air conditioning, it's fair, it's basic stuff as far as the fittings of the house, but you have a deck, the sun is setting in your face every night, and they get $5,000 a week.
$5,000 a week. It's a big house, though. That's a pretty big house. So,
you could do 2 or 3. You could fit 2 families can go in there with kids, and they got it set up where the top floor is, kind of like the 2 master bedrooms, kind of for the adults, and the second floor, the second floor has got 3 bedrooms with just single beds everywhere, so you could put a ton of kids in there, and then the first floor is, the living room and the walkout deck and that kind of stuff. But I mean, they are the last house on this sandy road, right on the water. You can at low tide, you can go grab some oysters, they have some shellfish. I mean, it's a pretty sweet spot. But I mean, they pay that house's mortgage off. Renting it for 8 or 9 weeks. They pay the whole year just on that, and then they have it, for the rest of the year, which is cool.
Yeah, and I think that's actually, I think that's about what I would have expected. It would, $5,000. I think that's a good. I wouldn't say that's.
Yeah, you go for less or more, depending on what kind of house you're looking for. But that's probably the average.
It's pretty good. I mean, if you can see the ocean from the window, and you pay
Plus, out here, it's a little different. I mean, there's certain parts of the Cape where the houses are a lot closer together, and it's a lot noisier and louder. I mean, this place, I mean, if you were in this house and you had your buddies there and stuff, all you would hear is are the waves crashing. You wouldn't hear anything. No one's bothering you. You could have your buddies. You could have 20, 30 people there and have a barbecue and party and not have to worry about getting in trouble or it's pretty private as well.
Yeah, that's my impression of it too. Just looking at pictures. How would you compare Cape Cod to the Hamptons at the end of Long Island?
I don't know as much about the Hamptons.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, I wasn't sure if you would have been there or not or anything, but because it's far.
Yeah, I was only there once.
Okay.
I mean, it is. We have a few towns. No, it's now that I'm thinking about it, it is a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
The Hamptons is, I don't know, it's like a rich place that, it's kind of like rich all year round. We only kind of see the rich people in the summertime up here.
Oh, okay. Right. So I was just wondering if there was any what the look and feel of both places were like.
Yeah, there's definitely similarity too. I mean, we have Provincetown, which is like a big, the fishing village, and they have Montauk, so they're, the point at the end. So there is some similarities. I mean, Long Island as a whole is just gigantic. So the Hamptons are a little smaller. The Cape overall is it's bigger than the Hamptons. It's not obviously bigger than Long Island, but you probably can get a larger variety of your kind of vacation out here. Where I think the Hamptons is kind of you're going to get your big giant house, and you're going to spend a lot of money, and you go out to dinner and go to a little vineyard or something. Where here there's a couple of different places you can go. You can come way out here where I am and relax, and it's kind of quiet. Or you can stay another hour closer, and there's mini golf and cheesy T-shirt shops and that kind of stuff. So there's definitely a little more variety.
What to do?
Your kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe that. I tend to believe that because we mentioned all the seafood spots. We mentioned all the Yeah, we mentioned like the restaurants. I mean, you have a great restaurant, a seafood restaurant too. So that's quite believable, to be honest. So I think that's. It just seems like the landscape of the Cape is also more, what is it, visually stimulating because it's kind of curves around and all that.
Yeah, a lot of artists, a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
are drawn to this spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And the beaches are. I mean, it's pretty wild. Some of them. You know,
Oh, yeah.
you got giant cliffs on the ocean side out here, and then you've got like the bay, which is a little quieter, and then low tide goes out. It's a completely different experience or different visual experience.
I see. Yeah. Okay, well, that's very cool. Thanks for fleshing that out for us. Kevin on the Cape, by the way, everyone, and I'm Dave Medina. We're just about ready to wrap it up. So if you have a final question for us, at DeadCow on Twitter, and we'll see if we can grab anything else in this last minute or so. So, Kevin, I just want to thank you for coming on under the circumstances. Definitely was very unfortunate the way that Blog Talk Radio failed us tonight. And on a night where we had a pretty good guest, I don't know if you heard him well, I guess maybe not unless you put on YouTube, but Jake Winderman, just terrific. I mean, amazing job. Just fantastic interview. And I mentioned it already. He does sound like his dad. I think that's pretty funny. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. He's good, man. He's good with the NBA too. Like it was a good spot. So, why does Blog Talk Radio fail when I need it? Like it's just like we put on a bunch of jokers, like most of just a bunch of regular guys, like normal. Maybe you shouldn't say that. Nobody is regular here on this show. Everybody here is fantastic, but I just mean like when you do when it's a guy that like when the regulars come on the show, everything works fine, and then when you get like a bigger guest, it just totally blows up. You imagine that?
Technology, Dave. Machines fail us when we need them the most.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. I don't know. That got me so upset at Blog Talk Radio. I thought about just not using it anymore. I'm like, you know what? If we can figure out a way to get people to call in our show on Google, I'm like, forget it. I'm done. I won't do this again. But I probably won't do that yet. But it just made me think about it because I'm like,
do you think my computer system at work fails on February 10th? No, it fails on July 4th.
always, right?
When we need them the most,
Oh.
they just crap out.
Always. It's always, it always works out like that. I was worried about it too, coming in like, oh man, what if something messes up before we start the show? And surely it did. And it was just crazy. So what happened was I started up the studio on Blog Talk Radio and I pushed the button to start the phone call. Through Skype, it can do a Skype phone call on there. And it would dial the number and then it would just hang up on its own. I'm like, what? That makes sense. So then I did the phone version of it because you can still dial phone numbers, even like regular phone numbers, with my Skype. So I dialed the regular phone number and it said, "Oh, welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN number." All that stuff. So I entered it.
That's what I did.
Yeah, exactly. And so I put the number in, and then I sat there, and it just disconnected. It just like, no, I'm sorry, it didn't work. There's an error. No, it just disconnected. I'm like, so I tried that like a half a dozen times. And then I sent an angry email to the Blog Talk Radio, and I just said, forget it. I don't have time to wait around for Blog Talk Radio to fix it. So we just went with Skype directly. And thankfully now we have this is actually where this new YouTube apparatus really came in handy, because if it wasn't for that, I would not be able to transmit this program live. We'd be only recording it tonight. But thanks to YouTube and Google Plus and Google Hangouts, we were able to do the show live anyway. So it's like I kind of gave blogtalkradio.com the big finger tonight. We'll definitely need him back next week, but I just thought that was funny how that worked out. Like we decided, okay, we're going to try it with video now, and now it works because of that. So it's really nice to have that backup plan. Like you have a backup channel. And I think because of that, you can do things that you used to not be able to do. Do you know what I mean?
Good to have a backup plan.
Yeah. And I'm just glad that I'm really just so thankful for the fact that Google Hangouts works so well, and because of it, we were able to get Jake Winderman on at a reasonable time, and we still had a wonderful spot, and I got you on. We still can take questions because we have Twitter, so it's useful because like one day maybe the opposite will happen. Maybe Google Hangouts will stop working and YouTube will die or the server will go down, but then we can still transmit the show with Blog Talk Radio. So these backup channels are very useful, and we'll continue to go to them. All right, so that's all the time I have. Junkie, any last words?
I hope you're having a wonderful time at your concert, Dave. I will be going straight to bed.
Okay, man, thanks. And you've earned that sleep, buddy. I really want to thank you. Is this nice to be able to come on earlier so that you can get more sleep? Like
this is a dream right now.
I love
10:05.
Mm-hmm.
Going to bed. This is fantastic.
Junkie, that's awesome. I hope you have a great night's rest in that case. Enjoy it. Enjoy the rest of your week. Let's do it again next week.
Yeah. Gonna put on Ken Burns baseball as usual and fall asleep.
I love it. Very nice. Okay, man. Well, have a great evening. Take care of yourself, Junkie.
You got it, buddy. Talk to you next week.
All right, bud. All right. Well, that's Kevin on the Cape, and that's our show. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Just a truly wonderful time. We also want to give our special thanks to Jake Winderman for joining us in our first part of the show. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Hope you get to catch the replay on YouTube. And have a wonderful weekend. It's been fun. This is a continued great venture. We've certainly enjoyed it too. And until then, we'll see you next time.
So you wanna believe it, but